Studies have shown that adding images to your social media posts can rapidly boost engagement. But what types of social media images best fit your brand? Keep listening to hear all the different types of social media images you can create with some repurposing magic. You're listening to the Content 10x podcast, where it's all about content repurposing. I'm Amy Woods, and I'm here to help you maximize your content and find smart ways to get your message in front of more of the right people, whilst also saving time. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Content 10x podcast. I'm your host, Amy Woods, founder of Content 10x, and in this episode, I'm going to share how to repurpose your content into eye-catching and engaging images with awesome shareability. Keep listening to find out why marketers are increasingly making graphics part of their playbook, things to know before you create your visuals, and 7 different types of images you can repurpose your content into. Images are an incredibly powerful medium. They can tell stories, instill emotion, and communicate messages that sometimes text just can't quite convey, or they add power to text to complete a message. Now think about the phrase, "a picture says 1,000 words." This is so applicable when it comes to content because all we're trying to do is communicate a message. And according to brain rules, on average, people retain 55% more information when it is paired with an image. So if an image can share your message quicker and more effectively than other types of content, why wouldn't we create them? And it's also important to consider that social media posts with images are statistically more likely to have people engage with them. Now, according to BuzzSumo, Facebook posts with images get 2.3 times more engagement than those without them. And Twitter posts with embedded images drive 150% more engagement than those without, which is probably why infographics were the 3rd most used type of content in 2021. Marketers know that images get results, so maybe we all need to take a note out of their playbook. And I get that as a business owner or marketing manager, you aren't necessarily a graphic designer. Even if you can create your own graphics, that may not be the best use of your time. So perhaps you have an in-house designer or a whole creative team, or maybe you work with freelance specialists, whichever you do. I also get that maybe you are interested in dabbling with some of this yourself just to get a feel for how it works and what tools are out there. Well, good news, there are some amazing tools out there that even have free versions that enable you to create awesome graphics with ready-made templates. I highly recommend Canva, but I'll mention a few other tools as we go through the different types of shareable content you can create for your social media channels, your blog posts, your marketing documents, and more. Whatever platform you choose to upload your visuals to, you'll need to make sure that you're posting images in the right shapes and sizes for that platform. It's a bit of a minefield on social media, so you do need to do your due diligence by checking the optimal dimensions for each social channel and the part of that social channel as well. So for example, Instagram has got reels, it's got stories, it's got the main post. So just check all of this before you create your images. And that's why the ready-made templates on sites like Canva can be really useful, because they stay up to date with the sizes and dimensions and create templates for the platforms. Now, let's get to the good stuff. What types of images can you repurpose your content into? I'm going to give you 7 different ideas, along with some tips and guidance, and hopefully inspire you to create awesome images. Okay, so number 1, I already touched on this, an infographic. Infographics are one of the more comprehensive types of graphic, and there's so much you can do with them, and they are highly shareable and a big hit on social media platforms from LinkedIn LinkedIn to Pinterest. The great thing about them is they allow you to communicate lots of information at once. In fact, you can pretty much repurpose an entire blog post or podcast episode into an infographic. I would definitely say this is one for a graphic designer. And my advice for repurposing your content into an infographic is to pick out your key points, storyboard it out, and keep it simple. And key stats, numbers, short statements, quotes, they work well in infographics as well. The trick is to order them in a way that it all makes sense without needing any extra context. You can introduce, icons and arrows and other graphic elements to help boost your audience's understanding of the infographic. Now check out our blog post and podcast episode, How to Repurpose Your Blog Post into an Infographic. It's an oldie, it was episode 4, so content10x.com/4, but it's still relevant and useful. So that's number 1, repurpose your blog posts, podcast episodes, videos into an infographic. Number 2, graphs, charts and diagrams. So a bit like an infographic, but covering one message or piece of data or statistic, finding, etc. versus many. Venn diagrams, bar charts, graphs are excellent ways of communicating information quickly and clearly. And they work brilliantly on social media because they're so easy to understand and everyone loves a good statistic, everyone loves a good visual. So combining both together is a good thing to do. So if you're sharing data in your content, for example, let's say it's a research report, you most likely have the ability to display your data visually. And I can't encourage you enough to do this. Plus, they're excellent for adding to your original content as well as sharing on social media. So put that graphic in your report, in your blog post, in your presentations, etc. Number 3 is quote images. If you've got guest bloggers or webinar, podcast or video guests, then give their thoughts some of the limelight by repurposing them into quote images. Now these are highly shareable on social media, especially when they're short, sweet and informative. And I know you've probably seen a million of these quote images on Instagram, but that's because people do like them and they do work. Whenever you're creating content for social media, the longer the quote, the less shareable it becomes. If your guest made a great point but perhaps kind of rambled on a little bit, then it is okay to paraphrase that quote. Just get in touch with them if you feel necessary, check that they're okay with the quote you are going to share, and then use that for your social media images. And of course, you can share these graphics with your guests as well. So ask them if they would want to share on their social media platforms, because that's going to just give you more exposure for your content as well. You can, of course, create quote images of things that you said too. So maybe you have, solo shows, solo content. It's not about guests. Some people like to do this, some people don't. So it really does depend on where you stand. Hey, just a little break from this podcast episode to ask you a question. Would you like one single place that you can go to that provides you with everything you need to be able to implement the best practices in content repurposing for your video content, your podcast episodes, and your social media content today? To help you get more value from the content that you create, get more time back, and help you reach more people than you ever thought possible. If so, then you are going to love the Content 10x Toolkit. The toolkit is full of video tutorials, templates, checklists, swipe files, step-by-step guides and more that shows you how to repurpose your content in the best ways possible today. No more Googling, no more figuring it out yourself. We provide you with everything that you need to become a content repurposing pro. If this sounds like something that would interest you, then go check out the Content 10x Toolkit at content10x.com/toolkit. Okay, and back to this week's episode. Now, number 4 is question images. And these are a bit like quote images, but I'm calling this out separately because we share a great question from the content versus a quote. This is particularly good for solo videos and podcasts where you might find sharing a quote image of something that you said is a bit egotistical. So just share a question instead related to the topic, but put the question in a graphic and make it stand out. Choose questions that are closed, easy to respond to questions so people can respond in a really simple way. Don't share really broad, open questions that people won't think that's going to be easy to respond to. Another way to get engagement, and just to say, I'm not suggesting that you go around trying to start big debates or arguments online, but it's to choose fairly polarizing questions and give that polarizing question more real estate in your audience's feed by uploading it as an image versus just a text post. And you might find that you get lots of responses and conversations going. Now, this is something you can do before your pillar content is shared. So we're talking about repurposing here, but it doesn't have to be after the main content has gone out. It can be before as well. So if you've got a podcast episode or blog post coming out about a particular topic, then write a question related to that topic and post it a few days beforehand or a few weeks beforehand if you want. You can get a conversation going, and then your audience will be more primed to listen to that main content when you've got conversations started and going on about that content prior to its release. Okay, number 5, memes. Now, this one might not suit every brand out there, but there's no denying the shareability of memes. They're also one of the most widely circulated examples of repurposing that I've ever seen, because rarely do we encounter the meme's original content before we've seen plenty of repurposed versions of it first. We started creating and sharing memes last year, and they've been a real hit, and the best part is they're usually repurposed from our weekly episodes. So we take core concepts from our podcast episodes, and then we head to the meme generator like ImageFlip, imgflip.com. I'll put the link in the show notes. And we find an appropriate meme and repurpose, and we've got some great memes that we've shared. Just go check out our social media pages. I recommend, if you want to find out more on this, then head to episode 161 of the podcast. So that's called How to Create, Share and Repurpose Memes, 8 Do's and Don'ts. That's at content10x.com/161, and the title explains the content. I talk about 8 do's and don'ts of repurposing memes. Number 6, GIFs. Okay, so not strictly still images, but they're not quite videos either. GIF stands for Graphics Interchange Format, so I think that makes them more of a graphic than a video, so we'll include them here. Again, whether you want to create and share GIFs, it's very dependent on your brand. If you have a fun and tongue-in-cheek brand, then this could work really, really well. What's great is you can use clips from your own videos and transform them into GIFs using a free GIF maker on sites like Giphy. But be selective with the moment you choose. And what I mean by this is don't just make a GIF for the sake of it. Like all content, it's got to have a point. So perhaps you add a caption to the GIF so its meaning is clear, or you choose a moment that speaks for itself. Of course, you can always add extra context in the accompanying captions as well, but remember that social media images are meant to be shareable, so the more you have to explain your GIF, the less likely they are going to get shared. So just make it standalone without needing too much context. And of course, GIFs are brilliant for just adding an extra fun dimension to blog posts. So if you want to give them a go, then I definitely recommend easing in with some blog post additions or even adding them to your stories on Facebook or Instagram to get started. And my final suggestion, number 7, Twitter screenshots. No doubt you'll have seen plenty of these on social media. Screenshots of tweets are so common that there's now tools that will create a fake tweet image. So you don't even have to be on a Twitter account to create these images. That's a little bit odd to me. I'm not sure why people would pretend to share a tweet when they aren't on Twitter, but each to their own. If you do have a Twitter account, then get more bang for your buck by actually posting the tweet and then taking a screenshot using a tool like Snagit. Now, I never used to be a fan of sharing tweet images over on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, but I did a bit of research and I spoke to people I know who were doing it, and they work. People do engage with them and people do seem to like them. The key here is to choose your tweets mindfully. Shorter, self-contained tweets are going to be far more effective when shared as an image on another site because they are an image after all, so they need to be read at a glance. And the good thing about tweet screenshots is you can test out your text on Twitter first before you share on other platforms. So share the tweet, and if it gets some traction and engagement, then you know it'll be a good one to share further as a tweet image. If you want to share a Twitter thread, then take screenshots of each tweet and put them into a carousel for sharing on Instagram or LinkedIn. Just make sure that you get them in the right order. So there's my 7 ideas for repurposing your content into awesome social media images. To recap, number 1, infographics. Number 2, graphs or charts. Number 3, quote images. Number 4, question images. Number 5, memes. Number 6, GIFs. And number 7, tweet screenshots. Now these are just a starter for 10, so hopefully they've given you some ideas. But I do have 2 final suggestions for you. First, head to the social media platforms themselves and pay close attention to what others inside and outside your industry are posting. Is there something others are doing that you're not? Or is there an opportunity to catch more attention by doing something different? And secondly, use the tools to your advantage. I know I mentioned Canva a lot in this episode, and I promise I'm not sponsored by Canva, but it's an invaluable resource that constantly updates with new templates and trending image styles. So do use this as a source of inspiration. And don't let your content go stale. If you're posting images to social media, it's really important to keep checking your analytics to see what's making an impact and what isn't. And staying up to date with trends can really help your images keep performing. Now, for a comprehensive guide to repurposing images to social media, I encourage you to check out my book, Content 10x, More Content, Less Time, Maximum Results. It's the perfect side of desk companion for all things repurposing, including lots of information on creating shareable social media images. Or if you want more comprehensive help, if you want all of this taken off your hands, then check out our fully done for you content repurposing services. Head to content10x.com/services to find out more about how we can help you. Now, I hope this episode has inspired you and given you lots of ideas for repurposing your content into social media images. Thank you so much for listening. I'd really love it if you could leave a rating or a review, preferably both, on the podcast app that you love to listen to your podcast. That would mean the world to me, and I'd really appreciate it. Now, all that's left to say is I'll catch you in the next episode.